The verse I wanted to think about was Genesis 1, verse 28. This is God speaking to humanity. It reads like this: "And God blessed them, and God said to them, Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth." Being a Christian is hard. Sin is tempting. The world is painful. Suffering, disease, and death are everywhere. And sometimes you just feel like giving up. You know that God has promised you an amazing new creation, but it just feels so far away. Where are the promises? I think the original readers of Genesis 1 would have felt exactly the same way. Imagine you're a young Jewish boy or girl, and you've just been released from slavery in Egypt. And as you're wandering through the desert, your mum and your dad are telling you about this amazing promised land. It's flowing with milk and honey. But all you can see around you is sand. It's hot and painful and difficult. And you turn to your mum and your dad and you say, is God really good? Is God really going to take us to a promised land? Because it feels very far away. And your mum and your dad take you aside. They sit you down, and with a twinkle in their eye, they show you Genesis 1. And as you hear about this formless and dark void that God takes and turns into a creation exploding with life, as you see him build oceans and mountains and fling stars into the sky, as you see him cover the earth with delicious fruit, as you see him take creation's keys and hand them over to humanity, you realize that this is a God overflowing with goodness. This is a God of blessing upon blessing upon blessing. But hang on, Mum. We don't live in a Genesis 1 world, do we? No, we don't, your mum says. We live in a Genesis 3 world, a sinful world, a broken world. So, if we live in a Genesis 3 world, how is this chapter for me? How do I get to have the Genesis 1 blessing? Well, your mum says, we don't live in a Genesis 1 world, but we do have a Genesis 1 God. A God with extraordinary plans of goodness and blessing for us. A God who is leading us to a land of milk and honey. Do you see how similar we are to the Jews? We're on a journey to a promised land too, and sometimes it feels really far away. But as we look back at our God in Genesis 1, a God of overflowing goodness and blessing, we can be completely confident that his promises are trustworthy. And this is not a prosperity gospel, because we're still in the desert. We haven't made it there yet. We do have some amazing things now. We know God as our Father. We're free from the power of sin. We're forgiven. But we're still waiting for the fullest and deepest and widest expression of God's blessing. We're waiting for the new creation. A place where there are new mountains and new valleys and new stars and new bodies and new songs, and sin and death and dysfunctional emotions, all of it is gone. And when we're there, we will never again doubt that our God is a God of overflowing goodness.